Well, most of you all know me, and you know, I've been in the legislature for in my 24th year now, and I've got a record, so most of you know what my record is. It's very conservative, very limited government, and I too do not file a lot of bills because there's only really three kinds of bills that are filed in the legislature. There's bills that tax you, which none of us are for. There's bills of regulation, which most of us are not for any more regulation. And there's bills that take away your freedom. And whenever I poll people, they don't want any of the three. So most of the bills that I file, in fact, the only bill that I filed that everyone in this room likes and loves is I'm the one that filed the bill to abolish the nighttime speed limits and raise the speed limits to 75 across the state. So no one has ever complained about that bill. They go, "You did that? I love you." That's the kind of bills that we do. But the big issues that face us in Harris County is the flooding, okay? And so I've come out, I'm supporting the bond election next 2 weeks from now to vote. So I would encourage y'all to vote for that. I know that many of you in this room, if you were not personally affected, you had friends or relatives or neighbors that were. Flooding is a big issue in Harris County, and so we need to get behind that, and we're going to do what we can at the state level to supplement and help add some funding. One of the issues, though, that I've been fighting for, you know that I've always been there on you, is to cut your property tax. We've got a big challenge in the legislature on property taxes because, unfortunately, a lot of members think they represent cities and county governments. And so they think they represent the cities and the counties instead of we the people. And I've never lost sight of the fact that I represent you, the people, and that our taxes are too high. I know also many of you are in the same boat, and you've been around Texas for a long time. You've known people personally that have been driven out of their homes because of excess property taxes. A lot of times people that bought a home 20 or 30 years ago, their property taxes is now more than their principal and interest payments when they bought their home. It's immoral to tax people out of house and home. You should be able to own your home at some point and never have to rent from the government again. I don't know that we'll ever get there, but the property tax needs to be at least measured to inflation plus growth. So we need to have manageable levels of increases. The governor has proposed a proposal that will bring up this time, and for most of you in this room, your property taxes, if we're able to get that constitutional amendment passed, your property taxes for most of you would not go up more than $25 or $50 a year, which would be manageable, which is a lot better than the several $100s a year that we're getting now. So those are the big issues. I mean, property taxes, it affects every one of us. And then the flooding, and those will be the big issues that we face in the legislature coming up in 2019. So that's kind of my prepared comments. I'll be happy to take any questions. Yes, sir.
Yeah. In 1999, Texas passed the Renewable Energy Standard requiring 200,000 megawatts of renewable energy by 2009. Currently, ratepayers are paying 25% for every added megawatt of capacity. We already have the most effective solar and wind farms in the world. We do not need to continue this subsidy. We sponsor a bill to end the forced subsidy by ERCOT of renewable energies. I can prove it to you after the meeting. It's all along.
We're subsidizing that now?
No, we're subsidizing at 25% on all new capacity, which means every time you have to increase the size of an energy plant because you've got migration into the state, or because the EPA removed lignite coal and you're having to take coal-fired units off, that requires you to increase capacity. And that increases capacity, ERCOT has to provide 25% to the wind grifters like T. Boone Pickens and to the solar pirates like Elon Musk. Yeah, well, we do not need this.
I agree. Let me just say this. Help educate me. You know how to get
I will.
And I'll do that because I am fundamentally opposed to the government subsidizing individuals. the role of government is not to subsidize business, because if it subsidizes business, then it gets in the business of picking winners and losers. And the government and the state government should never pick winners and losers. The free market will determine if your product is valuable and if the people want to use your product. It doesn't need government subsidies, so I'm opposed to government subsidies. Any other questions?
I have a question for you. One of the biggest parts of our property tax is funding local school districts, Cypress ISD, for example, here. And I know that they have a committee that's working on the proper way to fund schools, because every time they come up with a funding issue, it seems to have a legal challenge and what have you. So do you have a solution for that, or where do you stand with
If I had a solution, we'd already have it. The issue on the property tax, the issue on the school funding is that every time we think we get a system, the school districts are opposed to it. They go to the Supreme Court because of the equity language in the Texas Constitution. It's just been very difficult. No one has found a challenge. If you could read the papers from 1870 and 1880 and 1890, they were still talking about school finance. We've been talking about it since Texas became a state in 1847. So it's just one of those issues that there's just not an answer. Now let me just tell you this. One of the things that I tried to do many years ago, and I got real close, I got an amendment on an education bill, is how many of you know there's over 1,000 school districts in Texas? It is the most inefficient way to run education anywhere in the world. I got an amendment on a bill probably in 2005 or 7 to consolidate the school districts. Let me just tell you this, there is so much opposition to consolidating. It's because, let me just say this, government thrives on inefficiency. They love inefficiency because inefficiency is what gives a lot of people jobs. And so they want to protect those jobs. And you have a lot of school districts that have less than 200, a lot of school districts have less than 1,000 kids. And they have all this administration and overhead to have a school district with less than 1,000. I can tell you this, if any business was that inefficient, somebody would have rolled it up, and made it, and created some economies of scale and created some efficiencies. It's just nuts that we have over 1,000 school districts. And they say, well, we'll lose our identity. No, I went to Bel Air High, so you'd still be Bel Air High fighting Westbury. You know? So your rival would still be Westbury regardless of who the administrator is. So I think that needs to happen. Okay, let me just give you perspective and I'll get to your question. Why it's so difficult, okay? We all live in the big city. Jobs abound everywhere. But when you get out to West Texas, if you get out to some of these small rural places, guess who the #1 employer and the highest paid jobs are?
School districts.
School districts. They have no motivation, and they are going to fight tooth and toenail to keep that thing in place because it is their #1 employer and the highest paying jobs in their county. So I understand the politics, but it's still a bad deal for the taxpayers. Yes, ma'am.
We're talking about freedom and liberty for people. One of the things that comes to mind is freedom of education, and local control is something that actually is very important to people. I was a public school teacher for 18 years, and I quit because of moral dilemma, obviously, many of them.
You got a question coming?
Yes. So my question is, how do you balance that the concept of wanting it to be more efficient and more centralized with the fact that people who love to be free actually want more local control in their community schools? They want more community schools.
I tell people, if you want control, as long as you're willing to pay for it, then that's freedom, you can do it. The problem is they want everybody else to pay for it. That's what we have property to, which everybody's opposed to. So now all of our tax base is being shifted to other places to subsidize this massive inefficient operation. So I just think it's a terrible way to do business. And I have voted consistently for school choice. Every time school choice has come up, I think that there needs to be competition with the government stranglehold on education. I think that people, I think you talk about freedom, I think that parents ought to be free to send their kids wherever they want to send them. And like, you know, fortunately for me, I had the financial resources to send my kids to private Christian schools because we're Christians and I wanted our children educated in conjunction with our Christian values and Christian principles. I have the resources to do that, but not everybody does. And so the people that don't, why should they be forced to go to public government-run schools where they're indoctrinated, as opposed to send their kids to where they want to get an education? Now, I know it's a slippery slope because if you let the Christians send their kids to Christian school, then you got to let the Muslims send their kids to Muslim schools, and every other religion send their kids to whatever their schools are. But you know what? That's freedom, and that's the choices that we make. And I wish that people would have more moral values, which at least they be taught in the religious schools. Yes, yes, and then yes.
You mentioned being in favor of the current bond issue to improve drainage. That bill would impose $3 billion in tax burden on our local citizens, and yet $800 million of that $3 billion is not earmarked for any specific project. Doesn't that give too much discretion to local government and create an opportunity for waste?
Well, it could, but I think that right now they're trying to, when I've visited with Judge Emmett and Commissioner Cagle on this issue, the issue is that really they don't really know. They're going to have to do a lot of studies, and they need engineers. They're looking really worldwide to try to find a solution. I know that they've been looking at some solutions from Holland and from some other places in the world to see if there's a solution that will work for Texas. But I want to say this. My opinion is if you live in Harris County or in the surrounding areas, I don't care where you live, even if you think you're in the 1,000-year floodplain, my recommendation is I don't care where you're at in Harris County, get flood insurance. Please get flood insurance, because when it decides to rain 20 inches in 24 hours, like it does on somewhat of a regular basis here, if you just happen to be where the rain cloud rains 24 inches over your house, there's nothing we can do to stop the flooding. It's just, it can't be dispelled fast enough. But, you know, like we can widen the ditches, and some of the proposals they talked about is actually digging another set of tunnels or another set of drainage underneath the ditches. And they would open it up and let them get double the capacity. So they're looking at a lot of ideas. They're just trying to figure out the ones that work with our low elevation. So,
of course, if the Army Corps of Engineers had released the level in the two reservoirs west of, the metro area, that may have made a big difference in the severity of the flooding. So,
well, that's what a lot of the flooding over here on West Little York was about, is because they started reducing the water.
Yeah, and so it begs the question, if we use the resources that we currently have, do we need to spend another $3 billion?
I know that the number one issue that everybody's concerned about is flooding. We need a solution in Harris County, because all of you that have been here, we've had the 100-year flood, the 250-year flood, the 500-year flood, the 700-year flood, and the 1,000-year flood in the last 15 years. So we've got to find, what we're doing is not working. We've got to find a solution. Yes, sir.
Society, pictures lose a little bit of face after that. My bigger question is about Robin Hood and how Robin Hood is looking to financing thing. I think there's an initiative in that for this next session about many things out of that Robin Hood scenario. Can you speak to that?
Not really. I do know that some people are looking at it, but I don't know what the proposals are yet. There's been no white papers or any recommendations put forth yet that I've seen. Yes, sir.
Concerning the Proposition A, is
you got that over $3 billion, nothing gonna make. All right, how much is, first question, how much is that going to burden taxpayers? Are we gonna be increasing, on property taxes or whatever, however you're gonna work that?
2 to 3 cents per $100 evaluation.
So you give it 2 to 3 cents per hundred?
Yes.
And how did we reach a $3 billion figure if we haven't even figured out the solution yet?
Just because you get bonding capacity doesn't mean you have to get the bonds. So they will get them and they will sell them as they need them and raise the money as they need it. They just need the capacity because they know it's going to be a big issue. Yes, sir.
You got the cities of Houston, Harris County, and county. That's where the developers go to get their permits to build, correct?
Yes.
Then why do we keep continuing to allow them to build in these low lying areas, which is just a...
Well, anybody that's doing new building is required to put in big retention and able to, I don't know exactly what levels of rain that they have to be able to expel and hold. But the new developments is not so much the problem because they're requiring the proper retention in those new developments. It's the older stuff and it's the roads and stuff that just keep on moving the water. But look, what happened last time, I think it's only one other place in the history of keeping records ever had more rainfall than we got during Harvey. And when you have 45 inches of rain or 47 or 52 or whatever it happened to be where you're at, I just don't know. I don't know that there's any system or anything in the world that will solve that problem.
If the county allows where that country club was in Clay Road, there's a builder at the bottom. Now they're going to build homes out there. And then put it very deep.
Over on Clay at Bear Creek.
Clay, and that was where the JP was.
Oh, that's on the other side of Highway 6.
You know about Pine Park, the west side.
Right.
Was Clay Road, it was the apartment. And that Pine
Well, I don't know why anybody would want to buy a home there knowing what they know.
They allowed it to happen, that's the point of it.
I'm not the county, I don't know.
So we get in front of it instead of being behind it, we can stop something.
I think Harris County permit system, if you look at it very, very carefully, from the standpoint of whether or not it's going to commercial. Because I'm going through some experiences in the last 8 to 9 months, where they've allowed some buildings in my area to the point where they didn't take into consideration the flooding of adjacent properties at all. They allowed this particular department to build that much higher than what the ground level was before.
Question, Joe?
Yeah, he's talking about the Harris County permitting process. And he's just saying that they're allowing people to build up dirt. I do know that the city of Houston's not allowing people to put in dirt.
This is Houston, this is
Yeah.
Harris County. And Harris County is not doing their job from the standpoint of evaluating what the new construction will do to the surrounding area, as far as homes or anything else.
Yeah.
I've lived that experience, it hadn't flooded me, but it came very, very close.
Yeah.
It's all doing that construction.
Joe, that's not a state issue, and so I would recommend that you get with Cagle, Commissioner Cagle, and talk to him and see if he can do something at Commissioner's Court.
And we talked.
Joe, I'll see if I can get somebody from the permitting department to come speak at our meeting.
Yeah,
That's probably.
but they've created some real problems by not paying attention. That's all I'm saying.
I'll see if we can get a representative to come speak to us. I think that'd be the best way to handle it.
Okay. Next month, next meeting,
Yep.
we'll discuss this issue.
Joe's gonna speak at the next meeting.
Gary, next year is a new day in terms of Speaker of the House. Do you have any thoughts about that you can share with us?
Yeah, in fact, I was just at a legislators conference this week and everybody asked me, who's gonna be the new speaker? Like, I have no idea. Okay.
Yeah.
And really between, there's 3 people that have declared, okay? And they want to know if I think that any of those 3 are going to be it. I don't know. I'll tell you this, until after the November 6th election, sometime between November 6th and November 20th, I can figure out who the front runner will be. But a lot will depend upon what happens in November. If we, I don't think the conditions that elected Joe Strauss exists. I don't think that you have to worry about the Democrats getting united and just finding 10 or 11 or 12 Republicans to elect a speaker. I don't think that's going to happen. I believe that anybody that gets elected speaker this time will have to have a coalition of, we'll have to put some kind of coalition together, a combination of Republicans and Democrats. And honestly, in evaluating the last, especially the last two sessions, I don't think anybody would want to get elected speaker the way that Joe Strauss got elected, because it becomes almost impossible to govern, because you're having to govern constantly against the will of the party that you're the majority of.
What do you think about the idea being floated about how the Republican caucus would select a candidate and then more or less mandate that all the Republicans support that candidate? Are you kind of abdicating your vote for the people?
I have signed off to do that because I think that we should elect the speaker from within our caucus. But that's not binding, and because the Constitution, the Texas Constitution governs how we elect speakers, every member gets a vote. And since we're not a divided house like Washington, Austin actually works. Okay. They're all going to get a vote, so everybody gets a say. And so it's just, I do think that I think that there does need to be at least a majority of support in the Republican caucus for our next speaker.
Do you think the electric grid will come back up again in the next session?
In terms of what?
Well, a vote. I mean, you think Bob Hall will bring it back?
You mean for the for the magnetic pulse?
Well, that's part of it.
Or hardening it?
It's also hardening the grid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the private companies are interested in that and trying to figure out ways to harden it. I don't know that we need a government mandate to do it. Those are all private companies. I mean, we're all against regulation and telling people how to run their business. Guess what? If electricity companies can't deliver electricity to you, guess what? They don't make any money. They have a bigger motive to fix the problem than the government does. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Last time I asked you this question, I'll ask it again. We, taxpayers, pay for an inordinate amount of money through school boards, municipalities, everything, to lobby, we pay lobbyists to lobby you.
Yeah.
Do you see any possibility of making some, I know it's futile, but I'm going to keep asking.
I actually filed a bill to say that governments could not hire lobbyists because it's just basically taking your tax dollars to hire somebody to come fight against the people that elected them.
Exactly.
I'm like, we're all here and we're all elected by the same people, represent the same people. Why do you need to hire a lobbyist?
Will you file it
And let me
again?
tell you what, that bill went nowhere. And there is, in fact, the parliamentarian at the time, I did this probably like in '97, I thought this is really crazy what's going on. The parliamentarian goes, this is the craziest thing. He goes, 20 years earlier, the most liberal member of the legislature filed a bill to get rid of lobbying by the cities and the counties, and he goes, now here we are 20 years later, and one of the most conservative members is filing a bill to get rid of it. He goes, so on some issues, it's like a horseshoe, the left and the right actually meet when you get so far behind. So on that issue, there is some consensus, but I just really think it's wrong that the cities and the counties spend your taxpayer dollars to come up there and really fight against the people. I mean, we represent you just like they do. And so I just think, and I think this is the reason you're not getting property tax cuts.
I agree.
Yeah.
Last year, Paul Bettencourt filed that bill that the taxes could not go up more than 4%. Your taxes could not go up more than 4%. We could not get the guys that were on the Ways and Means Committee to vote for that bill. I'm like, why? Our counties and cities are against it. Of course they're against it. They always want more money. And the only way to cut spending is to cut off their money. And so that's what we're trying to do, is to limit their money and to make them more efficient. Everybody says, well, let's do efficiency. I said, I'll tell you how to make everybody more efficient. Just tell everybody, we're gonna cut your budget by 10%. And just keep on doing that for a few years and see how efficient they get.
I like that.
Okay? Anything else?
Thank you so much, I appreciate it.
Thank you all.